Aruneneva bodhena purvang santamase hrite tata avir bhavedatma svayamevang shumaniva. Arunena, by the Lord of the early dawn, Aruna. Eva, like. Bodhena, by the knowledge. Purvang, beforehand. Santamase, universal darkness. Rite, when destroyed. Tataha, then. Avirbhavet, arises. Ātma, the self. Svayameva, of its own accord. Angshuman, the sun. Eva, like. As the Lord of the early dawn destroys darkness, so Ātman appears after the destruction of ignorance by knowledge, like the sun. Namaste. So this verse is very beautiful because it brings out the point that we do not seek or we do not see Brahman on our own. Our role is simply to remove the ignorance. And then Brahman will shine of its own accord because that's its nature. That's kind of missing from the translation. Swayameva means of its own accord, naturally, without any effort on our part. So if we simply remove the ignorance by how? Performance of the sadhana chatushtaya, which we've been over a whole bunch of times in this series. I know people don't want to hear it, and the number of views has dropped way off, and the number of comments as well. People get bored hearing the absolute truth. Weird, huh? This should be on everybody's to-do list as the number one thing in the day. Listen to the latest video. Because the information, the knowledge in these videos, tmabodhah, the transcendental knowledge or knowledge of the self, will remove all the problems of life, all the sufferings, all the inconveniences, all the problems. Now, you can't get that anywhere else. Every other solution to the problems of human life has failed, isn't it? Science, politics, religion, self-help. All these things promise us a better life, but what they actually deliver is simply more suffering. It's pathetic. People will go and watch hours and hours of, workout videos or whatever. But when it comes to watching hours and hours of tmabodhah, they're not available. They have better things to do, so they think. But all those engagements are partial, and their results are impermanent. Worse, they lead to karma, which means that one has to take another birth in order to expiate the karma. So it's very problematic. The only real solution to the problems of life, human life on planet Earth in Kali Yuga, is to get out. And the way to get out is by removing the cause of suffering. And ultimately, the cause of suffering is desire. I'll never forget, one morning I got up early as usual, and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice to be without desires? And suddenly it happened. I had no more desires. Oh, I was so happy. And then, of course, later on, they came back in subtly one by one, and it was the same old thing. But now I had had a vision. I'd have a look to see what it's like to be without desires, and that motivated me to work harder on myself to remove them. So this should be your inspiration as well. If you're not having transcendental experiences, if you're not getting a taste of the divine, a taste of freedom, detachment, renunciation, like that, it means you're still clinging. You're still holding on to these mundane desires, and that's going to cause you suffering. Sorry, that's just the way it is. And then you might say, well, doing all that sadhana is also troublesome and difficult and leads to suffering. Yes, it's true. It's called tapasya, which means intentional suffering. Deliberately taking on difficulty. But in the case of sadhana, it is a means to the end of all suffering. Whereas in mundane life, it simply continues the same thing over and over again. Samsara. Samsara dava nalalidha loka. That in this life, the suffering of material existence is compared to a forest fire. Davanala. Samsara, repeated birth and death, is like a forest fire that burns without anybody starting it. Maybe it starts spontaneously from the wind blowing through a bamboo forest, and the friction of the bamboos heats them to the point where they burst into flame. Or maybe some careless camper didn't put out their campfire nicely. So anyway, the forest fire is burning. The fire of material existence, desire, suffering, need, frustration, anger. All these things are like a burning fire on the soul. So if we can exercise our will with the support of Shastra, the scriptures, and get rid of this desire, this material desire, ultimately the desire to exist as an individual, then all the troubles will cease. Brahman will self-evidently, without any other support. Brahman doesn't need any support. It is the support of everything, but it requires no support. Of its own accord, of its own nature, its brilliant, effulgent nature, it will become present and obvious, just like the sun in the morning. It's still too early in the morning. The sun isn't out yet. But it will be. It'll burn through these clouds, and it'll come out bright and shiny. So the same thing is true of Brahman. If we simply get these desires out of the way, these material perceptions, neti, this is not me, this is not me, this is not Brahman, this is not the self, then simply by its effulgent nature, Brahman itself will become more than obvious. It will become overwhelmingly evident, even to the casual observer, once these desires are removed. So what's the key? Viveka, discrimination between the real and the unreal. The real is the eternal. The unreal is the temporary. So everything we perceive in the world is temporary. You cannot find any object of perception, up to and including the entire universe, that is not simply impermanent. But Brahman is permanent by nature. It's eternal because it never changes. It is one because it has no boundaries. It is pure because it is not attached to anything. It doesn't cling to anything. and it doesn't need to have anything. All its desires are fulfilled. So there is no need in Brahman. There is no attachment. There is no clinging. It is free, effulgent by nature. And because Brahman is full of consciousness, Sat Chit, Chittam, mind stuff or consciousness, pure intelligence, then it's Ananda, full of bliss. So we don't have to strive separately for all these things. They come naturally as a part of or a feature of Brahman when we get rid of the coverings, the upadhis, by discrimination. Then everything is revealed, just like the sun in the early dawn.
Tat Sat Om Shakti Om